Welcome back, Warriors, to another Battlefield 2042 video. I'm your commanding officer, Major Doodleman149, and in today's briefing I'll be going over the Battle for Nordvik that we've engaged in over these past 3 weeks. I'll be going over how each battle played out and giving you my thoughts on them, both the good and the bad. I'll also be addressing the uniform modification the brass offered soldiers who volunteered to partake in these battles for Norwegian weapon manufacturers. Let's get into this, troops. The first battle we experienced, the Assault on Nordvik, focused on the attacking forces attempting to capture all objectives across the entire map. Doing so would claim victory for the attackers, as the defenders had no base to deploy from, only the objectives. The defenders started out holding all objectives and simply needed to wear out the attacker's supply of reinforcements to claim victory. The brass couldn't offer us any air support during this battle, so all focus was ground-based. In regards to the good parts of the Assault on Nordvik, the removal of aircraft certainly helped push the conflict in a more infantry-focused direction, as the brass had assured us this field of battle would be. However, the remaining inclusion of heavy armor still took away from the selling point of this front. Now that we've gotten that extensive list of positives done, time to focus on the negatives of this mode. First off, the soldiers deploying to this field have no idea how to manage this battle. As such, the defenders would simply sit at the front lines while the attackers backcapped objectives, or the attackers wouldn't realize they could bypass the front line to do this. I feel the brass failed to properly inform those that were deploying just how this conflict could be played out. Also, the balance fell heavily to the side of the defenders. As the attacker, the fight was not only against an entrenched enemy, but it was also a fight literally uphill the whole time. Both things pushed the attackers at a disadvantage. On top of this, there was no hype during the engagement from the brass. You were simply dropped into the field without a word and extracted in the same manner. Battles would end very abruptly and you were exfilled almost immediately. There was no after-action report either. You simply deployed, fought, and returned to the Exodus in silence. Very underwhelming. The second battle for Nordvik, the defense of Nordvik, saw another force looking to take control of the Nordvik facilities, this time heading downhill the whole way to the point where the attackers started during the Assault on Nordvik. This battle featured defenders holding a single objective per sector against the attackers. Once a sector was lost, the defenders could not retake it, despite notes in our HUD stating otherwise. Once the attackers reached the final sector, 5 MCOMs were set up in the final weapons facility that the attackers needed to destroy. Bombs would have to be planted and defended until detonation. Defenders had the opportunity to disarm these explosives. While the attackers needed to take objectives to gain reinforcements, defenders just needed to kill off enough attackers to drive their reinforcements to zero. Again, we'll be focusing first on the positive elements the brass delivered with this. The smaller scale of the battle, 16 attackers versus 16 defenders, brought us some opportunities for operators to function on a more tactical level to achieve their goals. Smaller scale meant tighter battles and more teamwork was required. The limit on vehicle types for each side was also a welcome change to this front, as it brought more variety to the typical attack/defense scenario. Again, after my short list of praises for this battle, there comes my long list of criticisms. First off, the fact the brass labeled lost sectors as capture targets for defenders was a massive technical error on their part. While defenders can freely roam previously captured sectors, the flags themselves cannot be lowered on the attackers once they have claimed them. This is a massive oversight from the brass. On top of that, this style of battle reminds me heavily of the frontlines battles our ancestors experienced during World War I. However, a vital aspect of those battles was missing here, the ability to push back. There is no back and forth with Retribution. It is a one-sided affair that is basically our breakthrough battle plan with a small series of rush objectives at the end. Nothing new, nothing exciting. Speaking of no excitement, while on the battlefield of all places, battles during the defense of Nordvik again started and ended rather unceremoniously. You were dropped into the field without a word and retrieved without a word. Apparently the brass doesn't give a shit how well you did as a soldier, they just want you in the field. The final battle we saw take place over these facilities was the liberation of Nordvik. This final battle for the weapons facility showed both the Nordvik Control Corps and Black Storm commit the largest number of forces to the field for the fate of this weapons facility. The United States backed the Control Corps, who retook control of the facility during the Retribution battle, while Russia backs Black Storm to retake the facility. With these international supporters, we've seen a total of 128 soldiers take the field to either defend or attack a series of sectors. The good parts of this battle come from the massive amount of troops committed to the field. This ensures that any soldier that wants to go headhunting has plenty of opportunity to do so. Some soldiers I've conversed with have been clamoring for a return to these massive fights. The good parts of this battle are also the bad. The massive amount of soldiers and the fights over open areas makes these battles a complete clusterfuck. Defenders have a distinct advantage while they hold positions against foes that must assault them with little to no cover. There's also the downside that this battle features nothing we haven't seen before. At least this fight has cinematic openings and closings. During these battles, the brass encouraged each soldier to earn as many accolades during the battle as they could. As the soldier acquired more ribbons for their actions on the battlefield, they were rewarded with various means to personalize their uniforms. Each phase of the battle for Nordvik featured 3 cosmetics that could be earned, 1 at 5 ribbons, 1 at 10, and 1 at 20 ribbons. Your CO will be going over what the brass had on offer during these battles and giving you my opinion. First off, during the Conquest Assault portion of the Battle of Nordvik, we were offered a Raider helmet for Sundance, a Revelation paint scheme for the MP9, and Casper earned a full set of gear that the brass titled Death. All of these customization options allow for any Nopat to dress like a member of the Black Storm. Sundance's helmet, while interesting on its own right, is clearly derivative of the helmet Casper is equipped with for his Death suit. The Revelation paint scheme for the MP9 is rather bland. It's black and gray, which certainly matches the look of the Black Storm operators, but the pattern itself is rather uninspired. The wrap on the weapon is a nice touch, admittedly. And lastly, we have Casper's Death suit, clearly the best out of the bunch. This is all black and gray suit fits a stealthy operator like Casper perfectly. At least it does in low light situations. However, on the green open fields of Spearhead, it does nothing to camouflage yourself. The helmet fits well with the hood he wears, and this is a solid reward as any. The rewards for Retribution were geared more towards the Nordvik Control Core. First, there was the Bastion helmet for Falk, the Marauder combat gear for McKay, and lastly, the Overseer set for Irish. I previously commented on how terrible I think the Bastion headset was when it was released for Crawford, so I won't be getting into that again, even if it looks like the most impractical piece of headwear I have ever seen. The Marauder combat gear for McKay is just as uninspired as most rewards are coming from the brass. It's the same base outfit McKay has been saddled with since the start of this conflict, but it's just dark blue now. Excellent creative work, DICE. The final set, much as with the Conquest Assault rewards, is by far the best. The Overseer suit may still be blue, but it's a full set of Nordvik Control Core armor that has nice accents here and there. The full helmet for Irish is also an interesting change that I feel fits his defense-oriented combat role very well. Overall, these rewards are worse than the last. Overseer is a good reward, but Bastion and Marauder just bring down the whole group in general. And lastly, we come to the Liberation of Nordvik rewards from this past week. We are granted the Watchman combat gear for Angel, the Hellfire MCS 880 skin, and the Thermobaric camouflage for the MAV transport. First off, fuck the Watchman skin. This is the 5th time the brass has given Angel a blue fucking skin. Just fucking stop. It's derivative and boring, so look for a short from yours truly expressing my full feelings about this come Saturday. Next, the Hellfire shotgun skin is confusing. Back when we first deployed to Canada, a vast majority of soldiers and weapons received grassy skins, despite that front featuring very little grass. So why this foliage-covered weapon has appeared now, and more importantly why it's called Hellfire, is well beyond the comprehending capabilities of your CO. The same goes for the MAV. We've gotten another grass-covered vehicle and is labeled Thermobaric. Nothing about this transport justifies this name. Overall, this set was by far the worst out of the 3 reward sets. All 3 rewards are garbage and are just items the brass had in the back room that they needed to get rid of. As this battle raged on, the brass gave us less and less reason to deploy. And so that is all, warriors. That is my assessment of the Battle of Nordvik, the brass's current focus in the middle of this deployment to Norway. Conquest Assault was an interesting combination of breakthrough and conquest, but suffered from a lack of instructions and a lack of urgency. If the brass better communicated the goals, perhaps through an opening briefing, soldiers may have fought this battle better. Retribution was much like frontlines from conflicts past. However, defenders had no opportunity to push back, essentially making it a single objective breakthrough. And lastly, Breakthrough Chaos was just as it sounds, more soldiers on a familiar and unexciting battlefield. The rewards from the brass, by and large, were complete shit. They were either lazy and derivative or just plain ugly and unappealing. In my opinion, these 3 weeks that the battle has lasted were not exactly worth investing in. I was able to earn my ribbons in the field for each phase in roughly 3 rounds of battle. After that, I returned to the conquest deployments that I've been used to. There was nothing about these battle phases that pulled me in for more. However, after all, these are just the informed opinions of someone who deploys to these fields and has been in the fight since the first deployment day. What are your thoughts, though, soldier? How did you feel about the battle for Nordvik? Permission to speak freely is granted. And so if you thought your CO did an adequate job today in this briefing, be sure to leave a like on this briefing and subscribe so that you never miss another video from your CO. Doing so will ensure that the brass pushes these briefings to more soldiers so that even more can be informed by someone out there in the fields. So I've been your commanding officer, Major Doodleman 149, and until next time, you are all dismissed!